The story of this film sheds light on the life of the briny character who suffers from both physical and other problems. Only a fewer understand him, and he has to personally deal with all the challenges, including the require to protect himself from bandits. The story takes place in a special boarding school for disabled individuals, where residents receive care and attention. But here they are given much more freedom than one might think. The rooms in the boarding school are nothing like hospital rooms, and two boys, Zoli and Barba, live in one of them. They are inseparable, drawing comics together and helping each other overcome difficulties. Sometimes they simply goof around. For instance, one day Barba enters the room with a fire extinguisher and claims he stole it. Zoli just laughs, and the friends go outside to test their new acquisition. The fun is interrupted when a bearded man from the same boarding school appears in the alley. He asks for a lighter, and Barba kindly shares his with him, but mentions that smoking is not allowed there. The man is about to leave when it turns out that the mysterious neighbor used to be a firefighter. He tells Zoli that he has rescued the bodies of small children from burning buildings many times and instructs him to put the fire extinguisher back where he took it from. After that, the man turns around and leaves, leaving Zoli offended by his behavior. Zoli tries to catch up with the offender and attempts to hit him, but the bearded man proves to be much stronger, and soon Zoli is lying on the ground, calming down. The victor goes away to empty his urine bag into a sewer grate. Then one of the friends asks him if he is Rubasov, accidentally the same person who ended up in the boarding school after prison. The man doesn't give a direct answer and argues with the boys on various topics for a while. Then he invites them to have a drink in the city center. The guys are shocked by the amount of drinks ordered by their new friend, so Zoli asks if he happens to be a dealer. Rubasov laughs and wonders how such a thought could come to mind. However, he admits that he could use a little help with work. For example, the services of a driver. Barba happily offers, as he has a car. Soon, Zoli lies down on the couch and Rubasov asks what's wrong with him. Barba tells him that his friend has a backache, but the new acquaintance shows no sympathy. He says that his back hurts all the time too, and one just needs to pity oneself less. In reality, Rubasov simply doesn't yet know how serious Zoli's health problems are. The next day, accompanied by his mother, Zoli visits a doctor and learns that his condition has worsened. His spine urgently needs support because it is rapidly curving and compressing his organs. The only way to save his life is through surgery. The boy's mother informs the doctor that his father, who lives in Germany, is willing to pay for the expensive procedure and is eager to help his son. But to the surprise of the doctor and his mother, Zoli flatly refuses this offer. "Why now? After 17 years, I don't want to see him," he says. Meanwhile, Rubasov has his own business to attend to and is extremely suspicious. In the park, he meets with a shady-looking man who is surrounded by 4 Rottweilers. The man hands a yellow package to his interlocutor and reminds Rubasov, "You must do the job well." Later, Barba and Zola stop by a food truck to get food for Rubasov. They stand in the middle of an empty lot, waiting for someone. Suddenly, a car arrives with 4 thugs getting out, followed by another car with friends of the disabled. One of the thugs looks disdainfully at Rubasov and offers him to join the passengers in the newly arrived car. When the interlocutor replies that he was sent here as a transmitter of information, the gangster only sneers. Rubasov tries to gesture to the guys to leave, but the gang is already closing in on him. The leader asks what he's doing here, and Rubasov calmly informs him that the man with the Rottweilers refuses to work with their boss. Naturally, the thugs are shocked by such audacity. Tensions rise, and suddenly the gang leader swiftly thrusts a knife into the enemy's leg, but Rubasov feels nothing. He is completely paralyzed below the waist. The leader then kicks him in the chest, and the hired gun decides not to waste a second. After successfully completing the task, Rubasov goes to the trauma center, where he starts flirting with a nurse. From their conversation, it becomes clear that they were once in a relationship, but now she has a new boyfriend who recently proposed to her. He forbids her from talking to Rubasov. Meanwhile, Rubasov's boss, Radosh, walks by the river with his beloved Rottweilers. Seizing a fortunate moment, unknown individuals in a car start shooting at him and his dogs. One of the dogs falls, and the others immediately respond to their owner's command, who miraculously escapes death. After meeting with his ex-lover, Rubasov drinks alone. He recalls how happy he was before prison and how he ended up there. One day he was caught stealing bread, and in the heat of alcohol and flashbacks, he accidentally shot an officer during the scuffle with the police. Rubasov speeds away from the institution and attempts to throw himself down the stairs, but survives. The next day he meets with Radosh to receive payment for his last mission. Radosh claims that their enemies have become more ruthless and have launched a serious hunt for them, but he believes in his agent. Rubasov is not taken seriously due to his wheelchair, but he is capable of dealing with even the most dangerous opponents, such as Tony, the boss of a rival clan. However, before reaching Tony, he has to deal with his lawyer. The only problem is that the lawyer is constantly accompanied by security and only appears in crowded places. Rubasov is undeterred and asks for more money, promising to solve everything. Radosh is pleased with his conversation with Rubasov. Obviously, he is not particularly concerned, only worrying that no one else finds out about this operation. In the institution, Rubasov works out in the rehabilitation therapy hall. He tries to learn to walk again with leg prosthetics, but he's not making much progress. Zola notices this. The guy approaches his friend and says that he and Barba would like to continue working together as a team of 3. Meanwhile, as the new mission is being prepared, Zola heads to a comic festival with his loyal friend. There is a young talent competition where the friends submit their works. They don't win the prize, but a local publisher tells them that the idea is cool. They just need to tweak the plot a bit. Their dream of being published is shattered. Meanwhile, Rubasov doesn't give up on his own dreams. He goes to the hospital to see his ex-girlfriend with flowers, but he sees her leaving with her new fiancé and literally falls into his arms. Shortly after, the events move to the city center. Rubasov stands on a pedestrian street and watches Tony's lawyer having lunch on a cafe terrace, surrounded by 2 men. Now the mercenary doesn't act alone. Zoli and Barba are nearby, ready to distract attention and come to the rescue at any moment. To cover their actions, they use bird feed. The guys simply feed the birds, nothing suspicious. But as soon as the lawyer steps onto the cobblestones, a shot is fired. While concerned citizens look around and bodyguards investigate the windows for a sniper, the friends quietly flee the crime scene. This is observed by Rodov, who controlled the course of the operation from a nearby car. Zoli finds himself in the doctor's office again with his mother, but he defiantly looks at his mobile phone screen and insists that he won't undergo the operation. Due to the doctor's remark about the phone, the boy immediately gets angry, curses, and leaves the room. His mother catches up with him and reproaches him for such disrespectful behavior, but Zoli can't be stopped anymore. He shouts that his mother has been lying to him his whole life. In his opinion, his father left not because of any problems between his parents, but because he was ashamed of his crippled son. The mother tries to calm her son down. According to her, the father simply wanted to immigrate, and she didn't go with him because of her Olympic career. But Zoli doesn't want to listen to her. Rubasov travels to the institute by bus, where he meets his beloved. She invites him to her wedding, and the man unexpectedly agrees. But by the end of the day, Rubasov encounters a much less pleasant meeting. Radosh is furious about what he saw the day before. No one else will be able to do such a job for you. That's why you're still alive for now, but you don't need partners. Get rid of them and only have me. It can be done, Radosh said. Now Rubasov faces a difficult choice. Either give up the money and the dream of getting new legs, or get rid of his new friends. Without thinking too much, he decides to take Zoli and Barba on a fishing trip. And when Barbie suddenly gets a bite and can't pull the fish out of the river, Rubasov seizes the opportunity and pushes him into the water. Zoli doesn't understand why his comrade decided to play such a cruel prank. He asks him to help pull Barba out, but instead Rubasov pushes him in as well, and neither of the guys knows how to swim, so they don't have to bother anymore. But the job that he had carried out many times before with strangers is now much more difficult for him. Rubasov goes to meet Radosh again. He asks how exactly he killed his friends, and Rubasov lies, saying that he drowned them in the river. The boss is pleased with the killer's obedience and gives him joyful news. They have finally found out where the formidable mobster Tony is hiding. All Rubasov needs to do is knock on the door and feed him a made-up story. The men part ways, but late in the evening, Radosh ambushes Rubasov at the boarding school and realizes that he hasn't gotten rid of his partners after all. Rubasov's partners don't waste time. They perform a spell on an old cushion for a wheelchair, hoping to hide weapons there for their next operation. And when Day X finally arrives, all 3 of them go to Tony's house. However, Rubasov forbids Zolia from going with him. He asks Zolia to call the cops if he doesn't return within 20 minutes and heads to visit the mob boss. Rubasov lies to the guard, claiming to have a message from Tony's own brother, and tells Tony that he spent 6 months in the same cell with his brother and was released only yesterday. When the hitman smoothly mentions the name of the surgeon who operated on his relative, Tony doesn't let him into the house. But first, they search him without noticing anything suspicious. Inside the mobster's home, he suddenly starts engaging in unrelated conversations about football, deals with Russians, and the mentality of different nations. But Rupasov is not willing to grovel before him. He directly asks how any of this is relevant to their business. That's when Tony loses his temper. It turns out his brother died 2 days ago, and he immediately understood that the stranger in front of him was deceiving him. There's no more time to waste, and Rupasov grabs the cushion and opens fire. Several bodyguards are hit by bullets, but Tony manages to escape to another room. However, not for long. Time is running out with just a few minutes left, so Rupasov urgently needs to return to the car. He barely reaches the gate and discovers that it's locked. In panic, he calls Zolya and asks him to drive up to the gates, and then orders Barba to ram them with their own car. But before he can do so, police sirens are heard in the distance, even though Zolya didn't call the police. So, Rupasov instructs Zolya to meet the cops and detain them. The guy succeeds in doing so. He stops a patrol car and lies to the officer, claiming that 2 suspicious men just ran in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, Barba manages to break through the gates, and a couple of hours later, the 3 friends sit by the bonfire, burning the wheelchair of their older comrade. However, he seems far from pleased with the success of the operation. He declares that Zolya and Barba always bring nothing but trouble, so he will pay them their fee, and they won't work together anymore. Rupasov goes to collect his fee from Radosh, but Radosh takes him to a strange place. The boss informs Rupasov that it's time to say goodbye and points to the gallows he prepared for him. Rupasov has no intention of voluntarily hanging himself, but the boss threatens him with Rottweilers. Still, he leaves Rupasov hanging from the noose. Left alone, Rupasov manages to gnaw through the bandage on his hands. Meanwhile, Zolya's health continues to deteriorate. Borya takes care of him and shows him a new part of the comic book based on their adventures with Rupasov. Late at night, the phone rings in their room. Their friend had a change of heart and decided to meet up again. In their room, Rupasov tells his friends that now Joy will seek them out. The only way to save themselves is to outpace him. Unexpectedly, Borba offers a practical idea: to toss a phone with GPS navigation into the boss's car and track his movements. While Rupasov attends his ex's wedding, he takes Zoli with him. Borba, accompanied by the 2 guys, embarks on a secret mission. Both teams encounter various mishaps. Rupasov starts pestering the bride during the celebration, and Barba and his assistants almost get caught by Radosh's men. But a new day comes, and the trio is already staking out the criminal boss near his house. The plan with the navigator works. In the evening, Rodos returns home unsuspectingly, only to find Rupasov and Zoli, the resurrected killer, waiting for him. Zoli demands the money they earned, but Rodos remains unyielding. He shows the friends the key to the safe and suggests they retrieve the money themselves. However, if the dogs see a gun, they will immediately attack. Rupasov simply replies that he enjoys challenges and shatters the opponent's expectations. But Radosh doesn't give up. He pulls out a cold weapon and engages in hand-to-hand combat. In the end, dealing several fatal wounds to Radosh, Rupasov shouts at Zoli to finally shoot. The guy shoots the enemy at point-blank range, hitting him in the head. Taking farewell from Rupasov, he takes the money from the safe and leaves. Several days later, Zoli meets with the doctor again. Now that he has earned means, he agrees to the operation and travels to Germany with his mother. There, in a German town, a courier delivers a package to the man. This man's name was Mr. Rupasov, and the package contained a book of comics from his son. Unexpectedly, the man discovers that the main character of this book is himself. We realize that the entire story of Killer Rupasov from beginning to end was a product of Zoli and his friend's imagination. 4 months pass. The friends are once again at a comics festival. The jury prepares to announce the winner in the amateur category and announces a different name. However, after the award ceremony, one of the jury members approaches the guys and confesses that she liked their comic the most. It was so unusual to draw comics about oneself. She expresses her desire to publish it and leaves for negotiations with partners, leaving the happy friends alone with dreams of a new life.